There are complex and elaborate methods for time management using cross-device apps, cloud platforms, and the like. Francesco Cirillo's Pomodoro technique merely requires a kitchen timer. And we'll find out how that works today. Welcome to the Soft Skill channel. My name is Sebastian Jung and today I'd like to present to you the Pomodoro technique. The year is 1987. The young Francesco Cirillo has trouble studying. And he says to himself, I want to really focus on a topic at least for 10 minutes. And he uses a kitchen timer to do this. He uses a kitchen timer to separate his studying time into sections and to organize his breaks. And from that he created the Pomodoro technique, named after his kitchen timer because it had the shape of a tomato, and Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato. Today, the Pomodoro technique has become one of the best known time management techniques. It is widely known and quite popular. I guess most of you have at least heard the name before. Francesco Cirillo also wrote a book about it where he describes the Pomodoro technique. The original is Italian, but there is also an English version, the Pomodoro technique. The basics are quite simple. You set a timer to 25 minutes and then for 25 minutes you really focus on your task, you work on your task. And once the timer rings, you stop and you take a short break for 2 to 3 minutes. And you repeat this process 4 times, and after the 4th Pomodoro you take a longer break of 25 to 30 minutes. This is the basic process. A lot of you have probably heard it before. There is also a simple framework for planning and introspection and further optimization. For that you need 3 sheets. The first is the activity inventory. On a piece of paper you write down all of the things that need doing at the moment, all of the open tasks you have. The second is your to-do today sheet. On this you write down the activities, the tasks you want to perform on this specific day. And finally you have the record sheet. On this you collect your results, though you have data for further optimization. And the process is quite simple. In the morning you have a look at your activity inventory and you select those tasks you want to work on the current day. You transfer them to the to-do today sheet. You use the to-do today sheet throughout the day to track your progress. And in the evening you transfer your results to the record sheet for further optimization. And how do you do this further optimization? For that, Cirillo proposes 6 objectives. Objective number 1 is to find out how much effort an activity requires. On your to-do today sheet, you don't just cross out the tasks you have finished, but you also keep track of how many Pomodoros you use for a certain task. So after a while you get a feeling for how many Pomodoros an activity will require. Objective number 2 is to cut down on interruptions. This is quite important. On your to-do today sheet you don't just keep track of the number of Pomodoros, but you also keep track of the number of interruptions during a Pomodoro that you suffer. There are internal and external interruptions. Internal interruption is, for example, if you suddenly think, oh, I wanted to make a phone call to my friend to discuss whichever topic. In such a case, you write down this activity you remembered in a separate section of the to-do today sheet, and then you return to the task at hand, to your current Pomodoro, and continue working on that. And it works similar for external interruptions. External interruptions are if someone else interrupts your work. For example, someone approaches you with a request, or your phone suddenly rings, someone wants to talk to you. In such a case, you tell those people that you are currently hard at work and you ask them whether it would be okay to get back to them later so you can deal with their request later. And again, you return to your current task, to your current Pomodoro. Objective number 3 is to estimate the effort for activities. Now, after you've already got a good understanding of how much effort an activity will probably require, how many Pomodoros you will probably need, you start actually making estimates. So in the morning, when you select the tasks you want to work on that day, you also make an estimate of how many Pomodoros you will most likely need. And over time, you refine your estimates, you compare your estimates to the actual results, to the Pomodoros you actually required, and over time you refine your estimates so they get better and better. Objective number 4 is to make the Pomodoro more effective, and you do this by adding a bit of structure to the Pomodoros themselves. At the very beginning of a Pomodoro, you start with a short review. What did I do up to now? How much progress did I make? And what are the next steps that I will perform during this Pomodoro? And at the end of the Pomodoro, in the last few minutes, you quickly review the work that you have done during that Pomodoro, the progress you made, and what's up next. And in a similar way, you also add structure to those sets of 4 Pomodoros that are divided by longer breaks. In the first Pomodoro of a set of 4, you do a short review. What did I do up to now? What am I planning to do in this set of 4 Pomodoros? And in the last Pomodoro of a set of 4, you perform a short review. What work did I achieve during this set of 4? And what is up next? Objective number 5 is to set up a timetable. So in the morning, in addition to selecting the activities you want to work on, you also schedule a certain time slot for work. And this is also helpful to clearly separate working time and spare time, so working time doesn't end up eating up all your spare time. An important rule here is the timetable always overrides the Pomodoro. So if you are in the middle of a Pomodoro when your allotted working time ends, you will still stop working and you will cancel the current Pomodoro because the timetable always takes priority. Objective number 6 is define your own personal improvement objective. As you did in the first 5 objectives, you collect data and implement further improvements, but this time you decide yourself what kind of improvement you want to implement and how you want to work on it. Francesco Cirillo recommends to keep things simple, to only track data you are actually going to use for further optimization, and also to keep the whole process as simple as possible. He recommends to stick to a kitchen timer, pieces of paper, and a pencil rather than using digital tools. And that's pretty much it. The Pomodoro technique is quite a simple technique, not complicated, easy to use, and that's how it is supposed to work. You just need a timer, some paper and a pencil to get started. And once you've acquired some routine, you can make further improvements by fulfilling the 6 objectives that Cirillo proposed. There is one further aspect that I will not discuss in detail in the video, but that is discussed in the book. The Pomodoro technique can also be applied to entire teams, and there are specific methods and approaches and techniques to do that. So what we are wondering is the technique any good? What are the benefits? What are the problems? One benefit Cirillo promises us is that we will get a better sense of time and a more positive way of handling time. He says after we've used the Pomodoro technique for a while, we will get a better sense of those 25-minute intervals. He says people are usually able to tell after a while when half of a Pomodoro has passed, or when they are within the last 5 minutes. So you will get a better grasp of this 25-minute Pomodoro time section. Another quite positive effect of the Pomodoro technique is that it is easier to take regular breaks because those breaks are already integrated into the system itself, into the technique itself. So it is much easier to actually take regular breaks, and regular breaks have plenty of positive effects. We will be more productive, more concentrated, we will feel better. So this is really an advantage of the Pomodoro technique. My personal experiences with the Pomodoro technique have been quite positive. In the past, I always expected it to be somewhat stressful to have this countdown running while you work, that it would put additional pressure on you. But this isn't how I actually experienced it. For me, it was rather calming and comforting to have the timer running, because it gave me a sense of, for now, I have those 25 minutes and now I can really focus on this task. I don't need to deal with anything else. I don't need to think about anything else. And that was rather comforting and made the task easier for me. And another thing I enjoyed is having those short sections of time, those individual Pomodoros, makes it easier to set aside a single Pomodoro every now and then for tasks that get usually overlooked or postponed. For example, some housework or some other tasks that usually gets left undone. And this was also quite helpful for me. Francesco Cirillo relies on a proven and established concept that big tasks should be separated into smaller chunks, into smaller sections. Only difference is that here it isn't actually the task that is split up, it is our working time that is separated into chunks, into individual Pomodoros. But the positive effects, of course, are the same. Especially big and frightening tasks lose a bit of their terror. If you have a task where you say to yourself, oh, I'm not sure if I can really do this, you will certainly be able to work on it for 25 minutes. And after that, you just proceed to the next Pomodoro. And after a few Pomodoros, you will probably notice that it isn't as difficult as you initially thought, and that you are certainly able to do it. In regard to problems, the major difficulty I have with the method, and this is unfortunately not discussed or even mentioned in the book, is how do I deal with tasks that have their own inherent sections. Let's say, for example, I used the Pomodoro technique for studying, as Cirillo did, and I'm reading a scientific book. And when the timer rings, I'm right in the middle of a chapter, I'm right in the middle of the explanation of some topic. Should I really start right in the middle of a sentence? Or let's say I'm writing something. I'm right in the middle of a sentence. I've already figured out how I want to end the current paragraph. Should I really drop the pen, stop typing right in the middle? As far as I understand the book, we are really expected to stop right when the timer rings and not quickly finish something. So I find it difficult for this kind of tasks, for tasks that have their own inherent sections. Now this of course also begs the question, which are the tasks the Pomodoro technique is especially suited for, and which tasks don't work so well for the Pomodoro technique. Again, the book doesn't discuss this, so it's pretty much left to us to figure it out by experimenting, by giving it a try, trying the Pomodoro technique for different kinds of activities, and observing how it works out for us. In general, I'd say tasks where you really get into the task, where you get lost in the task, where you lose all sense of time. The important term here is flow. We will discuss this in a future video. For such tasks, the Pomodoro technique probably isn't that helpful, and the ringing of a timer is probably experienced as an undesired interruption there. But in general, I like the technique. I think it is quite useful and it is simple to use. So feel free to give it a try. If you don't have a kitchen timer at hand, you can also set a timer on your smartphone, or there are also plenty of online Pomodoro timers. I will link to a nice example in the video description below, so feel free to give that a try. Let me know in the comments about your experience with the Pomodoro technique, how it worked out for you. I am looking forward to your feedback. By the way, a lot of my videos fit nicely into such a 25-minute Pomodoro, just saying. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a like, and I would be quite happy if you subscribe to the channel and stayed with us here. We will see each other again next week. After all this work, we will discuss work-life balance. For today, I'll take my leave. Have a nice day. See you next time.